Drop it on them random.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode number 15 of That Time in Hip Hop. I am your host, Vegas of Hip Hop Now podcast. I got my homie with me, Tone of IntoTheDome.com. What's good, man?
What's good, man? I'm, as usual, I'm drinking some nice juice with some cayenne and ginger in it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Damn, shit. I got water today, so it's cool. I feel good.
Right.
That's the water. But yo, if you're watching for the first time, or maybe you never pay attention when this part comes, this is a podcast about the history, the nostalgia, but more importantly, the preservation of hip hop music and culture. So here you can learn or reminisce or whatever it may be about certain artists, certain albums, certain events that took place in hip hop, certain movies, everything, and it's all done in regards to preserving the culture, because a lot of people hear that in regards to hip hop and they really only think like, well, yeah, because mumble rap is terrible. That's not really our motivation. Our motivation is we love this art form. We loved it since we've been kids. You know what I'm saying? We grew up in it, and we just don't want the history, the moments, and the people who helped make it what it is get forgotten. And that can happen. It's happened with a lot of shit over time. So, we doing our part as true hip hop fans to make sure that not only people remember these events and artists or whatever, but also if you don't know, you learn, and you maybe you'll grow to love hip hop the way we do, man. But we're gonna start with a segment that we like to do called This Week in Hip Hop. And Tone, This Week in Hip Hop. Let me just get my information out. August 6th, 1988, very good year. Yo MTV Raps debuted. Now, if you don't know Yo MTV Raps, well, first of all, there was a point in time for you kids that MTV didn't really play videos by black people. Now, I don't mean necessarily that they said no videos by black people. They just played certain music, mostly rock, right? And then Michael Jackson broke through because he was a huge pop star around that time. Eventually, in 1988, a hip-hop show came because hip-hop was unstoppable, hosted by Ed Lover and Dr. Dre. Not that Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre that used to DJ back in the days. And it's right there with Rap City. If you know Rap City from BET, it was like Yo MTV Raps and Rap City for a very long time. And what was dope about it, not only because they both offered hip hop videos for you to watch and guests for you to, watch as far as your favorite artists, but they also had two different tones. So when you watch Yo MTV Raps, you kind of felt like maybe there was a bigger budget behind this, in the way it was shot and the guests they would have, the set. And Rap City was more like what you're used to seeing, more hip hop, more a little bit underground as far as the presentation of different hosts. But Yo MTV Raps, I forget what year they actually went off the air, but it was the air, but they were on for a very long time through 88, which I refer to around the golden era, the early 90s, I believe the late 90s into the 2000s. So
mid 90s.
Mid 90s. So
95 to be exact.
What, when they
final show for Yo MTV Raps was 1995.
1995?
Yeah. 88 to 95.
Why does that seem that doesn't like around the like for people who looking like, well, why are you reacting like that? Think about what was happening in hip hop in 1995.
Right.
For you to go off the air.
Yeah, so, very strange.
Yeah, it's something ain't right with that. And
I would even say this real quick. First of all, Yo MTV Raps is a life changer for young kids who would love hip hop in America, period, because we was listening to records at the time and the radio, but we didn't get a chance to really see our favorite artists so frequently until MTV Raps happened, especially for me being here in North Carolina. I know you guys, before MTV Raps came, you had the video music box with Ralph McDaniel, but we didn't have that down here per se. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it was more local up there for you guys in New York. But for us, MTV Raps was everything. Rap City came the year after MTV Raps, but of course, the first host was Fat Five Freddy. And just real quick for some listeners, the first guest who actually hosted the pilot show was Run DMC and Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. You know what I'm saying? And then on that first initial episode, the video they played was Eric B. and Raquel's Follow the Leader. So you guys can go back and check that out on YouTube and check out the first episode that showed Run DMC and Fresh Prince. It was on a bus. You know what I'm saying? And they were just talking and clowning and everything like that. So that was the earliest stages of MTV Raps. But to your other point, Veg, about 95 being an interesting time in hip hop, and Yo MTV Raps kind of left abruptly. I remember watching the episode and hearing rumors about like the next week was gonna be the end, and all these other MCs was gonna be on there, and there's gonna be this grand finale, and that's that famous part 1 and part 2 of the freestyles with KRS and Rakim and Special Ed and Melvin Red and Eric Sermon, Chubb Rock, and the guy from Third Base. I mean, it was crazy, but that all happened kind of abruptly, man. But nevertheless, 88 to 95, man, was a legendary time for MTV and for hip hop. Hey, man, it was beautiful, man. I hate to end it kind of abruptly, but it's still legendary for the culture.
Yeah, and to think about, and yeah, how can I forget? Fat Five Freddy was the original host. But the crazy part is, everybody talks about like how dope 1996 was, and the fact that Young TV Raps wasn't even around for that.
Right.
Mind-boggling, you know what I'm saying? But it's such is life, in business, and I'm pretty sure a number of those things played a role in it. I almost think I remember what went down, but I'm not positive. But also, they have a anniversary concert. It either happened or is going to happen. I think it's happening in Barclay, at the Barclay in Brooklyn, New York, with a number of guests, and it's like a reunion show. But I know in recent years, or more recent years, Dr. Dre, I believe he was blind in both eyes now.
Yeah, I think he did get sick at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he's still here, so
right.
He's still kicking. I've seen some quotes from him recently, but nevertheless, Yo MTV Raps 88 to 1995 is still a good run. There's still a lot of dope features. I remember being on there. Ed Lover had his dance,
right? No doubt.
That he would hit all the time. And it's probably something you can go back if it's there, if MTV ain't shut it down. You can probably go somewhere on the internet or YouTube or VMO or whatever, and find, old episodes and see what we're talking about, man. Because you got to remember, like Tone said, man, for him, this was the first time seeing a show like this. And for me, even though we had Video Music Box was more so like under the underground in the way the videos were and the way the presentation was, whereas Yo MTV Raps for me felt like, oh, hip hop is not just street anymore. Like it's moving up. It's becoming big time. So I appreciate those brothers in that show. Classic hip hop video show. Everybody should know about it, or at least try to check it out. But we get to the point in the show where we talk about the main topic at hand. And if you haven't been paying attention, those two brothers back there, that album, Tone, tell them what we're here to talk about, man.
Man, that time in hip hop, September the 29th, 1998, Mos Def and Talib Kweli are Black Star. And let me tell you, I was a senior in college. It's the fall of 98. I was actually finished in the spring, but had to do an internship at the hospital, so I was still around UNC Greensboro. And my fraternity brother came to my spot with the Black Star CD. He's like, dog, I got something for you to hear. Because all us hip hop fans always try to put somebody on, like, yo, I put you on. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, yo, I'm going to put you on to this joint. He happened to beat me to the record store. You know what I'm saying? Because I already seen like Definition video or whatever. But I remember us just having a beer, man, and listening to it all the way through. And I remember looking at him like, yo, it's something special right here. But every now and then you hear a project and you see something special. And then Mos Def stood out. Now, don't get me wrong, Kweli, the good MC, very dope, still got longevity to this day. Mos is one of those naturally gifted MCs.
Mm.
So every verse, every flow, the cadence, the rhymes, everything was just effortless, man. But I remember hearing it and thinking, okay, you know what? This is kind of refreshing because the whole, you know, second half of 1997 was really Puff and Mace owning the airwaves with all the 80s remixes. And don't get me wrong, at the Pocket Big guys and stuff, we had to have some fun for a little while. So
Yeah.
let's not get on. I'm not on this, middle finger to Puff and Mace and Bad Boy, you know what I'm saying, post Biggie. No. We had to dance a little bit. We had to have some fun again because hip hop got grim for a little while. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So Black Star came at a time where everybody was ready again for that grind. You had Noriega getting ready to come out. You had Big Pun about to come out. You know, you had a lot Canada still ripping the airways, you know what I'm saying, and the freestyles and everything. So people were ready for 98. Now Jay-Z was also about to hit with the Hard Knock Life and Outkast was about to hit with Quemini. But during that time, I think people was ready again for that rock. You know, Rockers was hitting hard at the time in New York. All the MCs was coming through Rockers Records and Lyricist Lounge and stuff.
Mhm.
And most of Quali was still involved with that, along with Pharoah Munch and even Eminem and Common and just all these other guys. So this was a standout album for the underground. It was an underground classic because it came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone expected this Black Star album. It had a feel of the 80s almost, you know what I'm saying, but still had a native tongue feel, but even a harder street edge feel as well. And it was very, very lyrical. And one thing that stands out, man, was how they used Marcus Garvey's, ship line, the Black Star. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And the way they made the word black so positive and so enlightening throughout the album. You know what I'm saying? And we'll get into some of that with some of the songs, man. But my first impression, man, I was like, yo, this is an underground classic, man. What did you think back when you first heard it?
Well, like you mentioned, man, because of everything that was going on at the time, you know, as a hip hop fan, especially a huge Biggie fan and a Tupac fan, and to have them both die like that, you know what I'm saying, or be murdered, I was kind of in a space where, we still had plenty of other artists, that were dope. But, it was kind of like, oh, now you're getting all these other artists, you're getting, fake Pacs and fake Biggies and all kinds of stuff. And I remember when Black Star first came out, like I didn't know who the hell Talib Kweli was. I knew most originally from a commercial I remember that used to come on. And then when he was on the Bush Babies record, I forget the name of that record. I love that record though.
The
Uh,
love song.
yeah.
It's that everybody
Yeah,
move to the music yeah,
yeah. Like when that
yeah.
came out, I remember like, yo, this song is hot. And
Yep.
that's the dude from that commercial. Like it was like a credit card commercial, something like that.
Yeah.
So I always, looked at Mos Def as like an actor. But then I was like, oh, this dude sing and rap, okay, whatever. But then when Black Star came out, I figured, oh well, maybe this is the group he's a part of, and I didn't know because I wasn't in on the Raucous thing like super early. It kind of came as a result of this album, and I remember hearing like I think I heard Respiration first, either that or Definition. But I was just like, well, damn, who the hell is this? And I remember dudes telling me, yo, this is Black Star. And I was still kind of lagging because, you know what I'm saying? Like there was a lot of change happening. And you know what it felt like? It felt like two kings died and everybody not only was trying to fill their spot for what they provided, but just trying to change hip hop in whatever way. So it was like everybody that came out felt like a big deal, like from Pun to Cannabis, DMX. It kind of felt like
Yep.
there was no real king. It was like, well, no, this Black Star Ruckus movement. This is the new, Ruckus. My bad. This is the new thing. And like when I didn't hear the whole album originally, but I heard enough songs where I was just like, damn, these dudes could rap. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's conscious, but it's still grooving. You know what I'm saying? It's still, you still can nod your head. Like, you're not nodding your head necessarily. I mean, you can do that too, but in agreement with the messages. But just because it just sounds dope. And I always thought that was important when it came to like conscious rap, because like I know, being raised off of Public Enemy, them fucking beats was crazy. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. And you know what? So when I heard the Black Thought album, when I got after the little intro and stuff, which is kind of setting the mood for the album, the track Astrology, man, like I said, with the, it really put me in the zone. You know what I'm saying? It was lyrical, the beat was fire. I remember, he said black like the side of the moon you don't see. You know what I'm saying? I was like, it just stuff like that, man, or like black like the slave ship that brought us here. So they kept using the word black and black and black, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, I see where you're going, you know what I'm saying? At the time, I didn't know a whole lot about Marcus Garvey outside of just some of the, basic information. Of course, now, you can go into the dome.com and you can read. I did an article on Garvey a couple of months ago, but way back in '98, of course, I knew about him, but I didn't know about him. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, now looking back, Mos Def and Talib Kweli were already on to something 20 plus years ago, 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? We're just naming their album Black Star set the tone. You know what I'm saying? And then they kept that theme really throughout the album. But I do want to make a little point. We're talking about '98, where you still had underground trying to come above ground. You had Puff and Mace and everything like that. But most of the Talib on that children's story song, they
Mhm.
were kind of saying, talk about people taking 80 tracks and jacking them and yada yada yada. So they
Yeah.
were throwing some little shots, at popular commercial hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Already, because they were super lyrical, just like when you listen to a track like Respiration and some other the joint with Common and some other joints, they were really lyrical, some real, Tribe Called Quest type hip hop. But they were throwing shots a little bit at just how hip hop was going to the radio. You know what I'm saying? It was really going, and it was really about first week sales. And did I ship out, 500,000 first week, yada yada yada. And we taking these down the Ross tracks basically and rhyming over. So those I got that feel listening to Children's Story, but then they have the B-boy track on there also where they talking about Rocksteady Crew and all this stuff. So they still trying to keep that essence of hip hop and kind of diss, you know what I'm saying? Like the pop, kind of like the way Daru was doing, a few years before that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because a little known fact to some people, but it's out there because he's mentioned it. But Puff was trying to sign those two
Yep.
because the thing is the misconception about Puff Daddy, P Diddy, or whatever is that he don't know real hip hop.
Hey, that's a total misconception.
Yeah, but he really does. He has his own vision for what he think he can do to advance, the artists and their music. You could disagree with that part, but to say that he doesn't know, nah,
He's hip hop head.
he's a hip hop head. I remember, and this is somewhat related, but Mos Def's last album, official album, the joint with the red cover. Damn, I love it. Now I can't remember the title. But
Is that Ecstatic?
Static, yeah. Like Puff tweeted that out, like, "Yo, this album's incredible. This is what
Mm-hmm.
this is what it should be." And I think a lot of people, don't think about those different things because he recognized, this wasn't just underground hip hop. This was something special. There was something special about the name, something special about that cover. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of cover you see on like reggae albums from like the 70s. You know what I'm saying? And then like Tone said, every track has a purpose. Nothing's out there just to be dope for radio. They have a purpose and they rhyme with purpose. And I think that's what's so dope about them. And kind of a tragedy that they really only had one album together, man.
Very much so, and I think that, creatively, they could have done several albums, but when you talented, man, you kind of venture off a little bit. When Mos Def did his solo album, Black on Both Sides, just a year and a half or so later. I mean, to me, that was a classic hip hop album. It showed where he had so much range when he doing the Umi says and things of that nature. But the album was also super lyrical.
Yeah.
But then Talib Kweli turned around with hi-tek, who did probably 70% of the production on Black Star album, and they did the Reflection Turner album, which was an amazing album. And Talib Kweli showed his range as far as subject matter. When you have, and he did the Blast, of course, is a hip hop gem. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying that Talib has, and then just the tracks throughout the album, man. Then he ends the album with a song called "For Women." You know what I'm saying, about the black women and their history in America and stuff like that. So they both got off with their solo debuts, and then most was in Hollywood doing some joints and movies and stuff, and he came back and did other albums. And Talib, of course, all the way up to now, his first solo album was Quality, and that was a dope album. You know what I'm saying? I still listen to that joint. And then he kept on making very solid albums for that last 16, 17 years. So, but I would have loved to see them come back together. Now, they did, speaking of their static, they did a song called History on their static, produced by Jay Dilla. And it's a video for that joint. You can go back and check it out if you haven't seen it. It's in black and white, and it's called History, man. Produced by Jay Dilla, man. Very dope song. And they talked about being Black Star on that song. They also had a lot of unreleased tracks throughout the years that you can Google. They got a joint called Bright as the Star, Little Brother, couple other joints that they did throughout the years, man. But for whatever reason, man, they never put together another album, man. But it's crazy at that moment where they actually made something so special. And for listeners right now, if you are saying you're a hip hop head, Black Star album it must be in your collection. You must go listen to it this week since you're listening to our podcast. Go YouTube the Black Star album and listen to the lyrics, listen to the beats, listen to the vision of the album. Again, I'm real big on people putting a full project together. They put it together beautifully. They had the right production, they had the right guest appearances. Man, I tell you. Let me ask you this though, Greg. What name a song or two that kind of stand out to you?
Well, for me personally, Respiration stood out, but probably more so Definition, because it kind of had that same Bush Babies vibe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I had loved that record to death. And it's just a powerful record in how it's presented. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes on, it feels like a jam. You know what I'm saying? It feels monumental. And I think that's one thing about them as a group and solo artists that they were able to accomplish with the help of hi-tek, with that album, and then obviously their solo albums, is they were able to penetrate the mind share of hip hop because of the simple fact that they just created something that was special.
Let me ask you this, Greg.
Yeah.
You said Definition, right?
Mm.
Is that the one they said they shot Tupac and Biggie? Too much violence in hip hop. So it goes back to that. Okay, I remember because ironically enough, I was listening to that today on Definition. They was talking about being safe because too much violence right now in hip hop, kind of like stop the violence.
Yeah.
So it still is like they killed Tupac and Biggie. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember hearing that part today. I hadn't heard in a while.
Yeah, and when you think about, like, again, messages like that, the track is a old school yet familiar track. They do it justice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They don't. It's really like even hi-tek. Yeah, we rule in hip hop. Like that's a BDP KRS-One.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like they were coming without being preachy about it. They were coming from hip hop history, basically, to create something new that felt familiar. Like I always, like I'm a big Star Wars fan. If you haven't noticed, lightsabers and shit in the background. But one of the things to draw a comparison, like with the newer Star Wars movies, in particular the one called The Force Awakens, a lot of like true blue Star Wars fans kind of dislike it because it feels like a retread of the original movies in tone and everything, and beat for beat. But I don't feel like that. I feel like enough time has passed where those familiar things to us hip hop fans and to Star Wars fans become things we instantly like and can relate to because we remember it. You know what I'm saying? But it's packaged in something new. So it's not quite the same. So that's why I feel like with them, yeah, there was the Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul and Jungle Brothers and X Clan and Public Enemy and and BDP. After Scott LaRock died and KRS One got a little bit more conscious, and they kind of felt like
Yeah,
all of that. You know what I'm saying? It felt like all of that combined in one into this new thing, and everybody was for it because if you was a hip hop fan, it felt familiar, but it was different. You know what I'm saying? So, it's again, like we said, it's kind of a shame that it was really only one album, but maybe it was meant to be in some regards. But what about you, Tone? What about like what one record or one or two records really stood out to you and told you like, yo, these dudes is dope, and I need to be in tune with what they're creating.
Well, when I heard Respiration, when I also saw the video for Respiration, it felt hip hop with most Talib and Common. It was black and white. And I could feel the city breathing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just that type of it's poetry in motion, man. All three had dramatic verses, man, real conscious verses. So yeah, Respiration. I actually like a track called KOS Determination, man. That's Talib's solo song on a Black Star album, man. He said something like knowledge of self is like life after death. You know what I'm saying? If you think about that line, it's just so many layers to that, man. Like you free. You got knowledge of self, man. You free, your spirit is free forever. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the way I interpret it, man, as I listen to it again today. You know what I'm saying? So that track, the last track on the album, man, Twice in a Lifetime, I'm gonna tell you, Punchline ended up doing a verse, man, that one of the best verses I've heard in a long time by Punchline. Jane Doe was on Wordsworth and Talib, but as dope as Punchline's verse was, Mos Def ended that song with probably one of the top 10 verses I've ever heard in hip hop. I posted that verse on Facebook today, and people was absolutely amazed by it. And then I said, don't read it first. I said, and then hit this YouTube link and listen to him spit this verse. And when you read the lyrics to it, the wordplay, that's when I said, man, Mos Def is like damn Lynn Bias, man. And what I mean by that is it's like he just stopped. Lynn Bias passed away, but it's kind of like Mos Def was so talented, and then something happened where he didn't really want to do hip hop the way we really wish he would have done it. We wish we would have had 7 or 8 Mos Def solo albums 20 years after Black Star released their debut album or only album. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like he kind of did his own thing because he had acting and other ventures he wanted to dive in. But Twice in a Lifetime, man, it's another one. It's like I said, it's my favorite probably. Redefinition was very dope.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like. I mean, I gotta keep going. I like Brown Skin Lady. You know what I'm saying? Because it's an ode and showing love to our sisters. You know what I'm saying? That's always needed because again, on IntoTheDome.com, I have an article about hip hop's love and hate relationship with women. You know what I'm saying? And it's deep when it goes into the way women have been portrayed and treated because of the hip hop culture. And it hasn't always been bad. It's not all bad now, but there are segments of the culture that really have put a little damper on the way women have been portrayed. You know what I'm saying? So Black Star did a good job of Brown Skin Lady, showing that love, man. So that was another one I really enjoyed, man. But
That's also a nod to the original by Roy Ayers.
yeah.
It's a classic record, you know what I'm saying? So it again, there we go. Like it's there's a lot of heritage and what they did with this album. From Black culture, period. Um, like we mentioned, looking at that cover, man, that's straight out of reggae album covers. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that's that's like a nod there as well, as long as as well as what other things they did, man. But yeah, man, like just a very dope album. I think over time, I think people have forgotten about that album and the fact that they were a group first. You know what I'm saying? Or at least that's the way it were being introduced, because it wasn't like they started as a group, running the streets for the most part. That it seemed like the plan was always for them to be soloists. But there's no reason why, until now, according to Yasin Bey, not Mos Def, that there's supposed to be another Black Star reunion album. What do you think about that, Tone? All these years, like what year did this come out?
1998.
1998. So what's that? 20 years later?
20 years later.
20 years later, you finally may get a sequel to a Black Star album. Are you excited for it, or are you kind of like with Talib? Is news to him? You think it's not?
Yeah, I remember seeing Talib saying something like, he had no idea, I guess, but I'm always leery when too much time has passed. I'm not saying that they couldn't put together something dope, because obviously they got the connection to get back to hi-tek. They can get with any other guys who quote unquote have the type of style they like, to make beats where, you still got Mad Lib and Ninth One and, all these guys who still make that kind of sound. You know what I'm saying? So they definitely get with people. The beats wouldn't be the problem. I don't think the lyrics would be the problem. I just think the focus be there, but they try to be too creative instead of sticking to, what we love, what we know they can do. Kind of like the way, Talib Kweli has done a good job, really being consistent with his sound. So I would want him probably to take the direction of the album, because I know Mos or Yasin Bey, he's really on he's real creative, but I don't know if that turns to the Love Below. I'm sorry, Andre 3000 fans. I don't like the Love Below, even though he's one of the most gifted rappers ever. Don't like it. I like 3 songs on it. I see that in Mos Def. I swear to God, Mos Def will start doing some nonsense single every song. You know what I'm saying? Same way Mos Def and Kanye pissed me off on Graduation with that Drunk the Hot Girls. They sing the whole song. It didn't rhyme on it.
Yeah.
They messed up a classic album, but that's besides the point. I want to be excited. A lot of time has passed. I mean, I would be one of the first ones if I could to listen to it. Don't get me wrong. They both are amazing MCs. I think that, they almost did an injustice, man, by not dropping a follow-up to that amazing piece of work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still don't get it, man. They could have, I think they could have made a bigger impact. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people still kind of sleep on this album because it kind of came and gone, because 1998 was flooded with some amazing work. That's why I'm glad we're doing this show tonight about Black Star, because again, the end of '98, Outkast dropped the Femini, Jay-Z dropped the Hard Not Life.
Yeah.
At the same time, DMX is destroying the streets with It's Dark and The Flesh of My Flesh. You know what I'm saying? Big Pun then became the first Latino, go platinum. So he's killing the streets. You know what I'm saying? Noriega is hot. Cameron is hot. All these artists, you know what I'm saying, are very hot at the time, man. And most Def Kweli had their own following, their own cult following. They still did what they did. And I just really wish that they would have had another breakout as a group, even though Talib ended up having a breakout with The Blast, and most had a breakout with Umi Says and Miss Fat Booty, stuff like that, which those kind of songs brought people into their solo joints, which were very good. Classic to me.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that was kind of the issue, because Black Star probably as a group probably did better, or maybe it did what Rawkus expected, and they capitalized off of it by releasing the solo albums. And I think the solo albums got more attention than the Black Star album, because everybody saw Mos Def could do a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? And then the Train of Thought, Reflection Eternal was just ridiculous.
It was.
It was just crazy. You know what I'm saying? So to have that happen on the solo side, I think more people, including myself, just gravitated more towards that than anything. And like Tone said, man, there was a lot happening in '98. Where I know for me personally, like I was like, I can't listen to all this shit. So, the people I like that's grabbing my attention is what's gonna get my money.
You know what though, babe?
What?
You just gave me a thought. So maybe the Black Star album was the setup. Maybe it was the setup to launch both of their solo careers. This happened to be an amazing piece of work, but maybe they spoke after that album and said, okay, now we're gonna let each other fly. So they both creative in their own right. We did this unified album. We went back and forth, verse for verse on every track. We did what we did as a collective. Now we've assisted each other and jumpstart our careers. But we'll always be friends. We'll always be Black Star. We can tour together. And at some point, if we ever get the urge to drop another album, we can do that. If not, we've set each other up for our careers because maybe they felt like, with an album that deep in lyricism, maybe they felt like they said all they need to say as a unit. And sometimes that does happen. It's kind of like, you know, Outkast has, 5 albums or whatever. People want like 5 more albums. But maybe they said everything they could from Southern Playlist to Stank Only or whatever the case may be. Maybe by the time Equipment came out, they're like, man, we're giving you everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
that happens because
it happens.
Yeah, like you can, I guess you can look at Wu-Tang as the blueprint because you think about that, there ain't never been no group of like 20 dudes, in the group. And then you got an album where they're not all on one record, but they kind of mixed and mingled. And once they started releasing solos, like, that only heightened them as MCs. And it felt like, well, they needed to come back because people also enjoy them as Wu-Tang Clan. But like I've always said on my podcast, Wu-Tang Clan's as a group catalog is not bulletproof. They literally probably only have like 3 dope albums. Because most people are now into the solo artists. Ghostface fans over here, RZA fans over here, Jizza fans over there. So it could have been the same, thought process because Raucous Records reminded me a lot of Loud Records. Loud Records was really like a record label for, I guess you could say, pure hip hop.
Yeah.
Because they had Mobb Deep, they had M.O.P., they had Big Pun.
Yeah.
And they had all these different acts that said, this is where the tradition is happening. We're not flickering in any 80s samples from R&B artists. We straight doing beats and rhymes. And Raucous Records was literally the same thing. And they did this, they almost had the same launch pad of the group, Black Star, and also, branching off to do their solo projects and having Pharoah Monch and having all these other MCs involved with the label. So like me personally, a Black Star album 20 years later, I would like to hear it, but I don't have the same reaction I had when it was like a Tropical Quest album, almost. And that didn't even go to 20 years, but almost 20 years later. Part of me is like, what is that going to sound like? Mos Def is in a different space. Excuse me. Yasin Bey is in a different space in his life. I mean, he doesn't even have the same name that you associate with. You know what I'm saying? And Talib has kind of really established himself as a soloist with project after project. So it'll be interesting to see. But nevertheless, if you don't know about Black Star, now you do. Go find that online, stream it, buy it, check it out. With all this context we gave you about the year, the decline, and how this album resonated with hip-hop fans and even some of their industry peers, there's no reason you can call yourself a hip-hop fan and not at least listen to this album and absorb what these cats was trying to accomplish back in 1998. Leave your comments in the comment section below. We'd like to know what you hear, what you think about this album in general, and what do you think about the possibility of a sequel 20 years later? But now we get to the point in the show where we also recommend something for you to go back and listen to. This is mandatory homework. That was like, if you got time to do it, do it. This is mandatory homework for people who watch the show. This is where we recommend something. And my recommendation for this week is Run DMC's Raising Hell out of the year, what was that, 1990, not 19, of course not, 1986, when this was released. The reason why I recommended this album is because I don't hear Run DMC come out of the mouths of people on social media or hip hop in general as enough as it should be. You know what I'm saying? Because it feels like everybody knows Run DMC, but I think people forget how big Run DMC was. I think a lot of people will quickly go and be like, well, when Bad Boy and he started making money, started selling records. Nah, man. Run DMC was already doing that in 1986.
World tours and all.
World tours. And this particular album, Raising Hell, is probably like prime, and it may not be the best album, but it's the same difference when people may not look at Thriller as Michael Jackson's best album, but it for damn sure is his biggest album.
Yeah, right.
And that's the same thing with this, man. This is when, the rock and rap mix was really working. They did Walk This Way with Aerosmith. But just not the rock and rap. Peter Piper's on this album. You know what I'm saying? My Adidas is on these albums. And to give some of y'all who wasn't around some context, when Run DMC had a song out that was hot, it got burnt into the ground as far as airplay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on hip-hop shows. It was one of the only rap groups that you can not only hear on a hip-hop show way late at night, but you might hear it during the day. And they would be like the only ones. They would like play Run DMC, My Adidas, or Walk This Way, and then, like Genesis would come on, or you know what I'm saying, or somebody. Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. Some form of pop record would follow. Wasn't the rap after rap after rap, R&B rap that wasn't the playlist. But nevertheless, man, it's 1986, Run DMC at the height of powers, Raising Hell, kicks off the album with Peter Piper, hip hop classic, and it definitely shows how creative, how connected to the streets they still were, how connected to hip hop as a whole. Not all the beats have a rock influence. A lot of them were typical of the sound of hip hop production around that time, and it was balanced. You know what I'm saying? And I remember around that time there was some hip hop fans who was not feeling like the Aerosmith connection, not at all. But me as a kid, especially when you think back and you watch the video, Run DMC holding ground. Like, yeah, Aerosmith, but them being like this, we not giving up no hip hop room whatsoever. I'm still doing shit like that at the camera. Like, so it was literally a collaboration. And I think that's what made it dope, because it was like, this is how we do it. This is how y'all do it. And let's bring it together and create something special. And one quick tidbit. Aerosmith was kind of on life support as a group. And this record, now don't get me wrong, they have good music, and I know Indigenous history, some people forget, but this particular record kind of helped to bring them back to the fan base who, might have abandoned them because maybe they had an album or two that wasn't great around the time. And Steven Tyler, they still performing and all of that. So, Run's still out there and performing all that. So Raising Hell, 1986, classic hip hop album from one of the greatest groups of all time, if not the greatest group of all time. Tone, Raising Hell, 1986, man. What was you thinking?
Hey, man, Run DMC is basically the kings of rap for me growing up. So my older brother, like I told you in an earlier podcast, DJ'd, and one of the first records he let me kind of scratch on and play with was one of Run DMC albums. So it was a big deal when it was released. I loved it. I love Run DMC. It's not my favorite Run DMC album because I think the Run DMC self-titled album and the King of Rock are better to me, my personal preference.
Yeah,
But like you said, Raising Hell changed rap music. It took it to another stratosphere, and it
mhm.
really got them all over the world doing tours and the Adidas and foreshadowing how clothing and endorsements and things like that would be in hip hop. Run DMC started all of that. People think stuff started at Rockefeller or Sean Don or something like that. No, Run DMC started this stuff. It predates all of these other guys over a decade. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a great album. It was great for the culture. It was great for music. Period. It did bring out the legendary Aerosmith again back in the forefront in their genre. You know what I'm saying? It was big for MTV, which means it was big for everyone in hip hop at that time and after that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, monumental, man. So but my pick is 10 years after 1986, 1996. Jerry the Damager drops his sophomore album, Wrath of the Math. So
Mm.
coming after 1994's Sunrise in the East, those are big shoes to fill. And also J. Rule had also created some enemies as well, because I mean he wasn't really keen on commercialization of hip hop, and he continued that theme on Wrath of the Math. Uh,
Yeah.
Hardcore beats. Let me say this first: hardcore beats, hardcore rhymes. Him and Primo did it again. Him and Primo did the first album. He did it again the second album. I wish they'd have did a third album, but that was the last one for them. I think they had some personal differences and things of that nature. After Wrath of the Map, they didn't do work like that anymore. I actually only think they did a few more songs, period, if any. Um, but Wrath of the Math was dope. He had a song on there called "The Bullshit," and that definitely ruffled Puff and some other feathers as far as like popular artists, because he talked about, started the verse off something like, get up with my Versace, yada yada yada. So he's making a mockery of any flossing of hip hop, and before Biggie addressed that on Kicking the Door on Life After Death anyway. And he also, Primo talked about when he was recording that, he had issues with Jerry Rue and Puff and Jerry Rue had an argument on the phone. Primo talked about this on an interview you can find on YouTube. Sorry about that, people. But yeah, you had the song Whatever. It was a very dope song. You had the song Invasion. That was on New Jersey Drive soundtrack. Oh yeah, Black Cowboys, where he came with the Fugees. He even opened the track up with something like I heard some MCs want to bring it, but a female is one of the strongest men. He said something about refugees, whatever, whatever. So yeah, he went at them on that verse. I wish I could recite the verse, but he's very detailed with his lyrics. So you guys have to YouTube that. But yeah, man, dope album. I'm a big fan of J. Will the Damager, man. I listened to him over the years still, but it didn't have the same spark and fire that he showed on Wrath of the Math, and of course the Sunrise in the East before that, man. But my recommendation is that check it out. It's hard boom bap Primo with the same sharp lyrics by Jay with the Hammers.
Yeah, man. I remember when that joint came out. Because again, like we mentioned earlier, 1996. There was a lot going on in hip hop. A lot. Enough to really only pay attention to a certain portion of it. So when I saw J. Rue the Damager had a second album, I was like, oh shit. Well yeah. I loved the first album. I kind of felt like, damn, how did I miss that this was coming out? But I can't tell a lie. It wasn't one song that made me feel some kind of way about him going at people, but was the fact that, like Tone mentioned, he mentioned a couple of instances on records, and I just kind of felt like J. Rue was better than that. Like,
Yeah.
I think that took away for me from what I loved about him on his first album, because I felt like with Black Star, he was a dude that was over here, but was powerful enough lyrically, consciously, just knew what to do with his music, that he can still get attention. But I think he wound up giving himself the wrong attention,
Yeah.
whereas it worked for some and it didn't work for others. For me, it didn't work as much. Obviously, later on, I kind of came around and kind of put that to bed as far as my feelings at the moment. But without a doubt, regardless of what's being said on them records. The records are dope. Primo did his thing, you know what I'm saying? J. Rue did his thing. It's sad that, it didn't continue on for him, at least, production-wise. Quick story, since we get to do that. I remember literally not too long after that album, I was working in downtown Brooklyn at the sneaker store, where I got a bunch of stories from a number of rappers from working down there. But I remember I was in the bodega, getting whatever, and a dude comes in with a bike. So I just figured, it's just random dude who live in the area, got a bike and shit. And I remember I was getting some juice, refrigerator, and I was like, damn, that dude sound familiar. But I'm not thinking rappers. I'm thinking, somebody I know. And I glance and I'm like, wait a minute, J. Rue the Damager just walked in here on a bike? Like, I didn't.
A bike?
Yeah, like, it ain't nothing wrong if you.
You mean a motorcycle?
Nah, man. No, I'm talking bicycle.
Okay. Oh, all right.
Straight up, nah, tone. Like, straight.
Okay. I was thinking. I was thinking Harley Davidson, not BMX.
Nah, man. Yeah. Look, you grow up in the hood or whatever, especially when you're younger. Yeah, I had a little job. I was in college, so I was basically still broke. I don't care how many records you sold. You're seeing more money than I am. And not only do you have a bike, but it wasn't a very nice looking bike either.
You should have walked.
Yeah. And I kind of felt like, well, maybe he's bicycling. I don't know. But then again, I came back to everything he was saying about other rappers and making money. And I'm just thinking, like, why, man?
Yeah, man.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if for you it's the simple things in life, you want to ride a bike, it's cool. But to me, that just kind of stuck out only because of, like you said, whatever happened between him and Preem and him not having beats.
Hey, man, was he riding a bike with Tim's on?
What's that?
Was he riding a bike with Tim's on?
I think so.
Because, y'all New York cats wear Tim's with anything, yo.
Yeah, well, I haven't worn Tim's in like 20 years.
Okay.
I'm not your typical New York cat. I don't get me wrong. There's some things I do that are just ingrained in me. But yeah, around the time I saw him, I started to feel like Tim's need to go away, and it was the middle of the summer, tone. So imagine this dude is wearing Tim's. He's J. Rue the Damager. He's already had a hit record and a dope album with a follow up, and he's just rolling up on the bike, like, and not being mobbed by anyone. That's the key. People are walking past him like he's regular, and honestly, when I got to the counter, I did the same.
Oh, man.
So take it however you will, but nevertheless, doesn't take it from that, this dude is put out there, saying some dope music, and Wrath of Math is one of them. How do you feel about that album? How do you feel about Run DMC 1986? Whether you heard it or not, it doesn't matter. Don't be ashamed that you wasn't born around it. That's different from the people who were. Leave your comments in the comment section below. We could chop it up. We both respond to everybody who comment. But more importantly than hitting subscribe and hitting the like button and leaving a comment so we can chop it up is make sure if you enjoy everything we're presenting here, you would share with people enjoy this kind of content, because honestly, we promote it, but it really works better when people share this type of content, man. On behalf, let's not say that, Tone, we don't do this as much, but we probably should, man. Tell them on social media where they can find you, and tell them about the website, enterthedome.com.
Yeah, check me out, enterthedome.com, ENTRDADOME. A lot of articles about, not just hip hop, but R&B, rock, jazz, historic figures and things of that nature, some sports. Just a lot of material, man. I hope you guys like. You like lists, of course. They got a greatest MCs, greatest groups, greatest albums, all of that stuff as well. Just so You can tell me my list sucked probably. Anyway, if you're on Facebook, check me out, Tony Haynes on Facebook, Twitter, Enter the Dome on there, Instagram, Tony Haynes the Dome. Just Google the Dome, man. I might just pop up or something, man. Holler at me, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Vegas World INC, and also you can check out an audio podcast that I do every week called Hip Hop. It's more so about the news of the week. So if you want to find out what's coming out, you want to find out what's happening with your favorite rapper, you want to find out what dumb shit some rapper did this week, because that's a part of it also. Not only will you get those stories, but you'll get my perspective on those stories. Until next time, y'all, man, go out and support hip-hop, music, and the culture.
Peace.
Drop it on the random.